are the kind of friendly additions that we get along with at beaches. Nevertheless, just as waves can be friendly, there are times when they're not so fun. In some cases, these seemingly innocuous waves become so big and so violent that they pose a possible security threat to it. To give you a little glimpse of just how strong the force of a wave can be, we'll be looking at a couple of waves that were so insane you'd never believe they were real if you hadn't seen them. Join us as we have a look at 20 rogue waves you wouldn't believe if not filmed. Number 20. The Kalila II Wave. Back in 2010, a cruise ship known as the Kalila II would be sailing from the Antarctic Peninsula to Argentina. The ship, which weighed well over 2,400 tons, had been moving through the Drake Passage, one of the most dangerous waterway routes in the world. And despite its size, it met with significant sea-based resistance that almost knocked it off its balance. Now, despite the initial resistance, the captain of the ship, who had about 160 sea trips under his belt at the time, believed that they could continue moving. However, things got significantly worse when the ship got hit by a 30-foot wave that rocked the deck and spilled water all over the vessel. Footage of the ship struggling amidst the waves was taken by the National Geographic Explorer, another nearby ship that had picked up the distress signal from the Kalila II. According to reports, the wave knocked the ship's power and communication systems out, rendering them offline. Fortunately, the other ship was able to rig a satellite phone over, and the Kalila II eventually reached its destination on reduced power without anyone getting hurt. Number 19. The Wahoo Nuclear Test. Nuclear weapons are pretty scary, and while there's always the threat of nuclear Armageddon turning the entire planet into a cold ball of ash, several countries continue to develop their capabilities just in case someone gets out of line. After the debacle that was World War II, the United States military decided to optimize its strengths by developing its nuclear capacity. This was around the time when the Cold War was heating up, so with new threats coming, the government was pretty much looking to ensure that it was prepared. In 1958, after the government had conducted several tests around the Marshall Islands, they decided to give it another go. This test, which was nicknamed Wahoo, was aimed at seeing the capabilities of the Mark 7 nuclear gravity bomb. According to reports, the Mark 7 had an explosive yield of 9 kilotons, about two-thirds the yield of the bomb that was dropped in Hiroshima. The bomb eventually detonated at a depth of 500 feet, and the results were astonishing. Remastered footage of the test shows just how insane the bomb actually was. Within just a second of detonation, the Mark 7 had created a spray dome that was as high as 840 feet. The dome's diameter grew as wide as 3,800 feet by the 20-second mark as well, showing just how much devastation that the bomb could really cause. But consider this, the Mark 7 pales in comparison to many of the nuclear bombs that are available today when it comes to destructive capacity. So, just imagine how crazy today's bombs may be. Number 18. Rodrigo Causa's Record Wave. In 2017, a Brazilian professional surfer and athlete named Rodrigo Causa officially broke the record for the largest wave ever surfed. The thrill seeker took off to the coast of Nazaré in Portugal, riding an avalanche of a wave that measured about 80 feet in height. And to be honest, I don't think anyone could do this achievement the right type of justice like he did in this video. By accomplishing this feat, he broke the record that was set by American surfer Garrett McNamara back in 2011, and at that time, McNamara took on a wave that was 78 feet, also in the same place. It looks like there's literally something in the water over there, because how on earth does a water body produce an 80-foot wave? Causa would be awarded the Quicksilver XXL Biggest Wave Award by the World Surf League in 2018 for his achievement, and he also commented on social media, calling the entire thing an amazing feeling. Records are meant to be broken, so let's see if someone else is willing to give this one a shot in the future. Number 17. Japanese tsunami. In March of 2011, the small nation of Japan saw what was the largest and most devastating earthquake to hit the country, and according to records, one of the 5 largest ever recorded anywhere in the world. The undersea earthquake had apparently begun in the Pacific Ocean, just 72 kilometers east of the Oshika Peninsula in the country's Tohoku region. The U.S. Geological Service would report that the earthquake had measured between 9 and 9.1 on the Richter scale, and because it lasted for close to 10 minutes, it automatically triggered a tsunami that rose as high as 10 meters. It was a truly crazy sight. The resulting tsunami reportedly washed away boats, fences, and even several houses.
This video shows the water rushing over an 18-foot seawall into Kamaishi City.
It might not look so devastating when you watch from above, but the wave of the tsunami was intense. In all, the earthquake claimed the lives of an estimated 23,000 people, while leading to damage worth between $200 and $300 billion. It was a massive event, one whose likes we may not see again in quite a while. Number 16. Cape Town's stormy waves. Back in 2019, the South African government sent out an official warning to residents of several cities, alerting them to inclement weather that could bring massive winds and rises in sea levels. The cold front was especially expected to hit Western Cape, and while people had been prepared beforehand, nobody would be ready for the massive waves that resulted from this. A police dash cam would manage to capture some of the footage, and it was scary for sure. If you see the guy in the car, what a lucky duck he was. The rains and waves lasted for several days, pummeling residents of the city and leaving many people unable to even get out of their homes. Local officials blamed the rise in wave occurrences on climate change, and once again showing that our environment continues to be in a very fragile state. Number 15. McNamara's 100-foot wave. World record surfs tend to switch up a lot. Koza had the reins for a while, but that didn't stop Garrett McNamara, the man who used to own that record, from attempting some pretty epic stunts of his own. In January of 2013, McNamara outdid himself and pretty much everyone else on the planet when he rode a 100-foot wave. This feat, which he also performed off the coast of Nazaire, was an awe-inspiring one that immediately sent shockwaves across the surfing world. Some would question his sanity, while others were just inspired by his bravery and courage.
I knew it was going to be the biggest wave I ever rode, and I knew what I was getting myself into. I've been preparing for it for years.
So far, the size of McNamara's wave has been disputed. While he's claimed that the wave actually was 100 feet tall, some people have brought doubt. And considering that the Guinness Book of World Records has yet to verify the claim, who knows for sure? However, it sure did look like a massive one to me. Number 14. The North Sea Wave. Now, personally, I am completely in love with the ocean. It's why I go there as much as I possibly can, and by the time you watch this, I'll probably be standing in the sand. However, I'm kind of scared of cruise ships, and after seeing this video, I feel pretty confident in my decision never to try this activity. Back in 2017, a cruise ship sailing somewhere around the North Sea would be hit by a massive wave, which some estimate to have been 100 feet high. The ship, whose name was not given, appears to have had the misfortune of running into the wave due to a storm that had been brewing on the seas for quite a while. And you can see just how much that it rocked the vessel. But why on earth was the guy laughing? Because if it were me, I'd be writing my will and saying my prayers in a violent fashion. It's a good thing the vessel was pretty sturdy though, because if it were a smaller ship, it may have well been easily overwhelmed by the water. Number 13. Anthem of the Seas Wave. If you're familiar with cruise ships, then you'll probably be familiar with Royal Caribbean International. The company is one of the most prominent cruise line operators in the world, and its dominance is partially due to vessels like the Anthem of the Seas. A Quantum-class cruise ship, the Anthem of the Seas is truly one of a kind. The ship accommodates well over 4,000 people, with amenities like amusement parks, bars, restaurants, and other entertainment fixtures. And it's no wonder that this ship cost Royal Caribbean an estimated $940 million to build. However, the ship was pushed to its limits back in 2016. While sailing from New Jersey to Port Canaveral in Florida, the Anthem of the Seas was hit by massive waves that were so large they seemed capable of toppling it over. The rogue wave pounded the vessel several times, with passengers being scared for their lives as the ship literally had to stop in the middle of the ocean. Again, this is another case of a ship, fortunately, being able to hold its own up against a massive wave. Props to the captain, but for me, cruise ships are going to be a no-go. Number 12. Bornholm Dolphin Waves. We all rely on oil and gas to power a lot of things in today's society. However, a considerable amount of oil being used is actually refined on off-coast platforms known as oil rigs. Oil rigs themselves are tethered to the ocean floor, meaning that they actually float even though their legs are pretty extensive beneath the sea. However, while they can be stable, this does not stop many waves from testing them from time to time. In January of 2015, Bornholm Dolphin, an oil rig located somewhere in the North Sea, got its chance to prove its stability after massive waves began to hit it following a storm. The oil rig stood its ground though, but I wouldn't want to be the man standing on it when this was taking place. Even though the platform itself sits at about 60 feet above sea level, the spray from the waves was high enough to hit the deck. That's definitely not the type of place that I'd like to be at all. Number 11. A close call. For the next video, we'll be taking a trip back to Japan, where a Coast Guard captain nailed footage of a massive tsunami heading his way. One of the most interesting things about tsunamis is that they form pretty early on in the middle of the sea, and then cascade to the shore. So not many people actually see them while they're forming. This captain, though, appeared to be one of those chosen few. As the footage would show, the tsunami had been brewing pretty early, but when the captain finally saw it, it was pretty much too late. Fortunately, no one was hurt, but I simply can't imagine how terrifying it all must have been. Number 10. Trouble on the Atlantic. Of course, the North Sea is not the only body of water that's prone to massive bouts of storms. Back in 2021, officials aboard a chemical tanker had to run for safety as a massive set of waves hit their vessel time and again. The sea appeared to have been pretty tempestuous thanks to a 3-day storm that had ravaged it. So it looked like Mother Nature was not particularly happy on that day, and she let the sailors have it. The North Atlantic waters are quite popular for being quite dangerous to maneuver. The famous RMS Titanic crash happened here in 1912, and ever since, hundreds of ships have gone under in this area. Fortunately, though, the chemical tanker was able to make it through unscathed. Number 9. Don't touch the goods. Personally, I think the bravest people on the seas are cargo ship captains. They have the unenviable job of transporting items from one place to another, and if there's ever any mishap on the seas, they most likely will be blamed for it. Still, though, they show up to work nonetheless. Cargo ships are usually pretty large, because they have to be, of course, considering the number of goods that they hold. But even these massive vessels will sometimes become tested by the waves. In this video, we see a fully loaded cargo ship trying to maneuver through the Bay of Biscay, a body of water that lies just between Spain and France. Another notoriously tempestuous body of water, the Bay of Biscay can get pretty rough as well, and this cargo ship captain was about to find that out the hard way. Just take a moment to imagine what must have been running through the captain's mind at that point. Any cargo drops, and he's going to get all of the blame. And with the ship being entirely loaded, it must have been a Herculean task to man the entire thing. Number 8. The North China Sea Wave. Still on the subject of cargo vessels being tossed like paperweights, another footage showing just how mighty the ocean is would be captured in October of 2021. On this fateful day, a bulk cargo carrier was making its way along the North China Sea when it was hit by a massive typhoon. According to reports, the typhoon had registered as a Storm Force 12 on the Beaufort scale, and if you listen closely enough, you'll actually hear the signals in the ship going off as it's being tossed from one side to the other. I wouldn't want to be anyone on that ship, that's for sure. Number 7. Rough day for Navy men. Just about every developed country has a Navy. They do an admirable job of keeping their country's maritime borders safe and free from threat, and they also help to keep maritime criminals at bay. So if there's anyone who should know of the dangers of the sea, it would be them. In 2016, a warship that belonged to the New Zealand Royal Navy was heading into the Southern Ocean, the coldest and windiest of all oceans in the world. The ship was tasked with patrolling the area, but while they were meant to catch toothfish poachers unaware, Mother Nature decided to give them a bit of excitement as the ship would be hit by massive waves. The ship did manage to make it out unscathed, but that was only because of just how massive and well fortified it was. Plus, are there really any people who would carry small boats and dinghies to go out in crazy waters like these just because they're hoping to score some fish? I really hope that people aren't that big of a daredevil. Number 6. Aircraft carrier versus typhoon. Now, it's one thing to see a ship or surfer being swallowed up by a wave, but it's an entirely different thing to see an entire aircraft carrier getting pummeled by one. To put that into context, airplanes and choppers themselves are large enough, so you can just imagine how large and stable that an aircraft carrier would be. Nonetheless, when it comes to the power of the waves, everyone has to buckle up. Years ago, an aircraft carrier known as the USS Kitty Hawk was on its way to the Yokosuka Naval Base in Japan. While making its way along the North Pacific Ocean, it came across Typhoon Fengshen, a massive typhoon with winds that measured 51 miles an hour, which built waves around 38 feet high. This guy was cooking up a storm for sure, and by the looks of it, Kitty Hawk was going through it, despite measuring over 200 feet from its waterline to its highest point. Kitty Hawk proved to be up to the task, but you've got to admit it does look pretty awesome. Number 15. Giant wave crashes wedding. Your wedding is supposed to be the happiest day of your life. You want everything to go well so badly that you're almost willing to go to any lengths to see it happen. These days, beachfront weddings have begun to become more popular. The looks and sound of the ocean waves washing along the shore as you say your vows in the presence of people you love is definitely unmatched. In 2022, a couple getting married in Hawaii got the right idea when they decided to have an oceanside reception for their wedding. Everything seemed to be going just fine with the proceedings until Mother Nature decided to barge in and make her presence felt. From the onset, it was pretty obvious that this was not going to end very well, and I think that even the guests could recognize that. Still though, despite their best efforts to get to safety, the waves had no mercy on the location. The waves took out pretty much everything, the tables, the decor, the floral arrangements, you name it. But according to reports, the cake survived, so I guess it wasn't all a total loss. Number 4. Mike Parsons takes Jaws Beach. Hawaii's Jaws Beach is one of the most popular beaches in the country. Known for its massive waves, the beach has become a notable spot for surfers and thrill seekers. In 2008, Mike Parsons, a professional surfer, decided to take on Jaws Beach by himself. His idea was to ride out, look for the biggest wave he could catch, and then attempt to surf over it. Mike eventually found a wave that measured around 64 feet, and the race was on. Considering that surfing records were not so prominent at the time, I would think that he was just trying to get in the Guinness Book. Why else would he see a 64-foot wave and want to ride it? In the heart-wrenching footage, you can see Mike literally get smaller and smaller as the wave races behind him. Despite his best efforts, though, the wave eventually got the better of him, but points for trying. Number 3. Till the Waves Do Us Part. Like I said before, oceanside weddings are really becoming a thing. The problem, though, is that the ocean doesn't really play by anyone's rules. If you're having your wedding anywhere else, you could easily control the proceedings and ensure that everyone complies, but try telling the waves not to poop on your party if they want to. This couple from California learned their lesson the hard way. The two had said their vows and were looking to capture the beautiful moment by the ocean, but Mother Nature decided to pull off the ultimate photobomb, and it sure was not a pretty sight.
Leaves the groom with a flotation device, then with everything he's got, swims for the bride.
Someone watching the event from a nearby hotel would be credited for the footage, as well as the rescue. According to reports, the person had actually notified lifeguards that the couple had been swept into the ocean, and they were able to act quickly in order to save them.
They fall in the water.
And fortunately, the newlyweds were able to escape with only minor injuries. Are you looking to get married? Maybe you should rethink that ocean wedding idea one last time. Number 2. Barging in unannounced. If you think having friends around who just come into your home is annoying, just imagine how the people on this ship must have felt. In 2021, a ferry traveling on the Elbe River in northern Germany would encounter a massive wave that was up to absolutely no good. This was a period when the infamous storm Jelenia had been tearing through Germany's coastline with winds as fast as 94 miles an hour. While many long-distance ferry rides and flights had actually been canceled on the account of the storm, these guys decided to press on, and boy did they make a mistake. The ferry had initially been traveling relatively comfortably, and you could tell that even its passengers were not necessarily fazed by the massive waves breaking in front of them. But then, all of a sudden, the waves decided to invite themselves in. According to the ferry operator, no one in the vehicle was hurt, so thank goodness, but still though, it must have been an incredible shock for the passengers to see this, especially the ones who were in front. Number 1. Rolling in the deep. In December of 2019, a chemical tanker would be seen transporting goods around South Korea when it got hit by a series of rogue waves. Whether the captain was unprepared or the ship's mechanics were not quite right, it's almost impossible to know, but with the succession of waves hitting one after the other, the tanker literally came this close to capsizing. If you look at the angle of the tilt on that thing, one more hit and it may have well been good night. According to further reports, the ship tilted by over 40 degrees, and in addition to that, a lot of the equipment would be destroyed and the inner cabins look like a complete mess. It's all quite understandable, considering that the entire ship was almost turned on its head. The ship would eventually make it to dock, but it would definitely have had to be parked for a while so the proper repairs could be accomplished. It was one heck of a ride, wouldn't you say? Mother Nature can